Welcome back, party people, to another Let's Play in History. We are gonna continue. We're gonna do things. We're gonna learn things. Hola, also, Mr. Reyes. Hola, senor. A lot of intel caches.
These are the current priorities. Do as you wish. Thanks, Hunter.
I'd be so pissed if she is integral to like the next mission we have to do. Okay, Cap needs to be upgraded, and we'll upgrade Wolverine as well. Let's do it. That's the squad right there. That's one hell of a team. Jimmy Carter runs and wins the governorship in Georgia. And immediately he's just a firecracker, people. I'm talking about a firecracker. And he showed the signs of what ultimately his presidency was going to entail, really, at this particular point in time. Yeah, why not? Boom, boom, boom. Hmm. Wait, is it immune to knockback? Just want to see how quickly I can defeat her. Probably not my smartest choice. But he's a firecracker. For the next 4 years, largely, he's going to be thinking about two things. I'll run at national politics, and not to mention, too, really trying to shape Georgia. Loki kind of goes back on a bunch of campaign promises. Is really, really adamantly and historically remembered for his aggressive push to desegregate schools and integrate, black and white people together, which was a culture shock for a lot of individuals. He's also trying to cut spending in every single way, shape, and form as well, mind you. And in doing so, he ends up angering a lot of people. Cuts a lot from the budget, tries to lower taxes, etc., does the whole thing. Consolidates a bunch of different government agencies, because there's like hundreds of government agencies at this particular point in time, and he's like, we absolutely don't need all these government agencies. I don't know why we have them all here. It's nonsense. Consolidates them into much more of a get over it. Boop. Death. Is that victory? That is victory, people. That's probably the fastest mission I've done. I don't think it's been more than 5 minutes. Beautiful. 3 stars. Yep, told you. But he was pretty authoritarian almost. Borderline, so he definitely used the power of the governorship to really shape and change Georgia in a lot of ways. Big advocate for education, antagonistic to the Ku Klux Klan, etc.
Calling out for me. I think she deserves an answer, don't you?
Really tries to make things more efficient, I think, which did endear him to a lot of people in Georgia. Oh, Nick Fury.
Hunter, you promised me the truth about Agatha.
I should let her tell it.
Agatha is here? Right now? I'm right here, Wanda. Can you not see me? Agatha? Where are you? Just my best friend. Better than nothing. Agatha, there's so much I have to say to you. Wanda, please. You are my pupil. I shall not have you bear the burden of my death. I lost control. No, I did. I pushed you too far, too fast. Yes, but I have to, my dear.
He's actually eyeing the election in 1972, but
I heard all
doesn't have enough juice, especially considering Nixon's a powerhouse at this point, so he doesn't run in 1972, but he's definitely thinking about it. He's thinking about his future prospects. He's thinking about
but I'll need your help.
really trying to make the country better.
My connection to this world is tenuous. There is a ritual that can bind me to this place. First, I'll need you to retrieve.
And at this point, Democrats are just all over the place, despite Nixon having, being Nixon and Ford being Ford. They really didn't have any prominence as political figures. Maybe Hubert Humphrey, who I think becomes his vice president, McGovern, but really not a lot of strong candidates that a lot of people have faith in, unfortunately. So he announces his bid
What exactly do you want to say?
pretty early, sometime in 1974. Well, not early, because people got to get elected and whatnot, but he announced it pretty early, in the middle of his term as governor. Campaigns on trying to make things more equal. I would say specifically equal, not equitable. And he showed real enthusiasm at this point in time because the country's a little bit in shock because Nixon resigned. Ford's the president, and Democrats were running like 16 or 17 different candidates for the presidency. So that convention's gonna be fun.
I do it myself.
Oh, it's no problem. One of my favorite shows involves a weekly heist.
Now, both of you promised me. Sarah cannot.
So when Democrats are doing their caucuses, he wins quite a few of them, and he's campaigning like crazy once he leaves the governor's office in '75.
And I can keep it
think he ends up traveling through quite literally most, if not almost all the country. I think he ends up traveling like 40 different states to campaign in like a 6 or 7 month span. Delivering speeches left and right. He's putting his name out there.
You and me both.
Right behind you.
And let's be honest, Carter has a lot of appeal. He's a good old Southern boy, deeply and profoundly Christian, and a lot of people find Memento and Caretakers. Okay.
Nothing. And not.
What the
All right, she's gone. Hurry up.
savage?
It's harder than it looks on television. How's it going in there?
Found it.
All right, Hostess Caretaker. Hi. How are you, doing?
I'm tired. It's been a long day.
Oh, I know the feeling. We should, take a walk around the Abbey.
Why would we do
The
that?
heck is this game?
Get the blood flowing after a long day. So how about we...
Wanda, it's late. I'm going to bed.
I want to talk to you about Agatha.
You do?
Can we take that walk? It's about something she said to me about you.
Wanda, this topic is out of bounds.
I'm not asking to be forgiven. I know I'll never make it right. But I have a wonderful memory of Agatha speaking fondly of you. It's not fair to keep it from you. So, can we take that walk, please?
All right. A short walk.
A short walk. We'll be back in a few minutes at most.
Let's go. I'd like to get this over with.
That's perfectly clear. Just a small cough. Why don't we head through the yard? Hunter,
Ileana?
what were you doing in Caretaker's room?
Agatha is a ghost. She asked Wanda and I to recover a locket. We need it for a ritual to restore Agatha. Then she can help us all fight Lilith.
That is absolutely
Metal.
amazing.
Tell no one.
Let me join the ritual.
Okay, I will.
Then I saw nothing.
Magic, a real one.
Are you out?
Mm-hmm.
Good. You know where to meet me.
Hunter, want to get your train game on? If not, we can talk a minute. Everyone tells me I've got
The gift of gab.
How's your mental health? A good portion of this darkness hunting game
Oh lord.
and processing intense situations.
A clear, focused mind, grounded in
Oh lord. Okay.
potent weapons.
AT for me. Give me stakes and a target. Maybe that's the same thing. Maybe it ain't. Whatever we got to be to do what we got to do. Well, it's all sorts of messed up. But hell on earth isn't a garden stroll.
Crazy as it sounds, Lilith will not succeed.
You've been spending
But because of his campaigning, he basically becomes like the people's nominee. Traveling all to various different states, strategically too, mind you. He knows specifically at least a couple of the northern, midwestern states he can potentially win.
Cannot wait to
And I think even more of the northeastern states he thinks he can win too. Which in fairness he did. What is this game, people?
I never want to do that again.
That must have been a difficult conversation.
The caretaker? It was. Since Agatha's death, they've all been difficult.
So the 1976 election is coming around. Carter wins the nomination,
Every word
relatively speaking, but pretty unanimously.
there was never the right time.
I mean, obviously it's not unanimous.
Yet this
But he says all the right things, proposes a bunch of the right things.
So what next?
Oh, but what was it?
I mean, he pretty much won a swath of support as a conservative, moderate individual. And he does have a pretty decent record as a governor. And runs against Gerald Ford in 1976. Walter Mondale is his vice president. They have, they end up having a big debate on television. Carter's become more on the national scene. He has this very famous interview with Playboy. Yeah, I know, very famous. It's wild, dude. Politics is very interesting.
What is this ritual exactly?
I think people were endeared by Carter, especially during the debate. And personally, I'm someone that I don't think debates really help or hurt people in particular, unless it's completely like you bomb like crazy in a debate. But because I think most people just make up their minds by the time that debates roll around. Because usually it happens months before the election, unless something completely drastic happens. I think people rarely change their perspective on a lot of things. I think people have their mind set for the most part. In this election, I think was really about a betrayal in a lot of ways by the Republican Party. I think really just someone who was more for the people, like Jimmy Carter was, instead of being some installed puppet president or perceived puppet installed president like Ford was. Carter runs and wins in a fairly tight election overall. And his campaigning ultimately worked. He does take a couple of the Rust Belt states. Takes New York, Pennsylvania. Those are the big ones for him. While still maintaining, relatively speaking, the southern wall that was there. And he becomes the next president of the United States of America. He and Ford actually have Gerald Ford have a pretty decent relationship. I think all things considering. Uses his advice on basically selecting his cabinet and choosing a lot of people. But yeah, that's just the truth. He wins. He wins primarily because people are endeared to this peanut farmer who, who understands that America can be a very truly prosperous nation. If you just love your family, love your faith, yada yada, you know how it goes. He really did endear himself to a lot of people. But he is the next president of the United States of America, and this leads to him immediately coming into office and dealing with a lot of problems, both overseas and at home. Overseas, you have conflicts going all across the world. Issues in Asia, China, the Middle East in particular, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit. But he was also dealing with the fallout of the previous administrations. In particular, heck is everyone? Why is everyone out there?
All right, Midnight Suns. Time to shake off the past and train to kick some ass.
But he's dealing with the fallout still of the Vietnam War. He's dealing with the fallout of a economy that's stagnated. Partly because we're no longer consistently on a gold standard, and higher taxes, or overall more government spending, yada yada. And businesses and people just aren't buying things in relative comparison to what they used to. There's just what people would coin malaise in the economy, and Carter's trying to help stimulate it. It helps bail out a bunch of businesses. Chrysler being one of them that I remember. That was quite a large sum of money that the federal government paid to bail out Chrysler. But a lot of things, unfortunately for him, that are happening all across the world are affecting at home. Famously, there's an energy crisis all across the country. Rolling blackouts. Excuse me. Certain gas shortages, etc., etc. Starts trying to create several new agencies. Combat bonus for Spidey.
See you around.
We finally restored satellite connection to Transia. Get it up on the screen now.
Also the Department of Education, mind you, as well.
Now millions twisted children roam free.
A glimpse into all our futures if we fail to stop them.
Those people need to evacuate. Are those Hydra soldiers blocking the bridge?
Unfortunately for Carter, he did not endear himself to Congress, the House or the Senate. And the truth is he just was someone who was very narrow-minded, very stubborn, and disagreed with Congress on just about every single issue. I mean, although at least in the first couple of years he largely got whatever he wanted. It was an absolute battle. I mean, in order to get the in order for them to set up the Department of Energy and the Organization Act, it took him like 6 months of just battling Congress, dealing out with the bills and whatnot, like trying to give concessions to this, to that. It's a whole thing, to be honest.
Those people need us.
We are going to Transia sooner or later. No matter what Crossbones has planned, we are going to hit him so hard he will not know where he is anymore.
That's the spirit. We just have to be careful. There are two possible angles on a fight. Rumlow staked out the third.
So then, what is your plan?
My plan is to stop Rumlow no matter what. If he's gonna fight,
Now, largely, economically speaking,
after that,
he did try to stimulate the economy in a lot of ways. He also tried to be pretty hands-off, and because when he came in, inflation was around double digits, and he ends up it was double-digit numbers in inflation, and by near the end of his term, gets down to like probably closer to 6 or 7%. And that's just him not trying to spend arduous amounts of money like crazy. Although he still does. But things that he does not endear him to Congress in a lot of ways, because Congress and the federal government, all they want is power, and he's trying to quite literally deregulate everything that he humanly can. Give more power to the people, and more so specifically in terms of, like, you know, little things like, hey, I'm gonna try and deregulate a bunch of stuff so that people can actually, like, for instance, make or grow certain things in their backyard that they weren't allowed to before. Like, give more autonomy to the American people, which the federal government didn't like, and a lot of fighting starts happening. Congress is pretty mad and trying to justify it, being like, oh, this goes crazy, yada yada yada, you know. One of the biggest ones that he was trying to do was to deregulate airline and flight controls, basically. Deregulate the FAA, you know, little things like that he was trying to do. The one thing that he would actively try to push forth that was going to put a lot of pressure on the economy and the country was he's trying to implement a form of universal health care. But even he couldn't agree with his own party, largely, in how it was going to work and how it was going to be implemented. Oh, you riled up the wrong buckaroony.
What are you waiting for?
Never too old to improve.
Alright, let's do this.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah, whatever. It almost doesn't matter who I move, really. Ooh, what you gonna do?
Don't let them sneak up on us now.
Now, his foreign policy is pretty interesting, though. I would say 2 or 3 things that really define it would be obviously the crisis in Iran that's going on.
We already knew you were a coward. What are you trying to prove by hurting these people?
I don't need to prove anything to you.
He's saying with the issues that are going on with the Soviet Union as well, there is a lot of problems with
Shaking in my boots over here.
Oh goodness, my dogs are ruthless. He does actually try to mediate the Middle Eastern Israel crisis while trying to maintain good relationships with Russia, dealing with the Middle East, the Far East in particular. He's definitely an anti-communist. He also did have a pretty good relationship with the Middle, or not with the Middle East, the Soviet Union, largely for the most part. To rescue all the civilians.
If I had known it would have come to this, I would have made sure to finish the job last time. They cannot possibly match your strength. That's the stuff. Start running and don't look back.
But honestly, though, he's just completely antagonistic, and I can't stress this enough. The federal government does not want Jimmy Carter. I'll put it that way. They start trying to investigate him, doing a whole bunch of different things, accusing him. Goes on TV a lot. Well, he's just moving a bunch of different pieces. I mean, it is a very chaotic 4 years during his time in the Oval Office. Does improve relations with a bunch of different countries. But ultimately, I would just stress this enough. He's just Sure.
Hail that.
Appear, good old Spider-Man.
Now that was something.
Boom.
Some for the rest of us.
Oof. And then, whabam. How dare you, dog communist? Sorry. It's just a lot for Carter. It's a very tumultuous 4 years that's pretty relatively well known. Of course, I made a lot of things wrong. I just want to give people the sense and idea of what it was like at that time. And it is just chaos. It's a little chaotic, it's a little crazy. People are thoroughly frustrated by all the things that are happening at this particular point in time. And people unfortunately started turning on Carter despite a lot of his
I thought that thing died with Faustus.
I kept a few around.
push for what he perceives to be the positive things for the country. And you know, I think people were much more susceptible to media antagonism, really more than anything else, even at this time. I mean, put it to you this way: if Carter's president today, it's going to be a very different future showdown, and he actually probably wins a re-election bid, to be honest with you, because people are like completely antagonistic to the federal government at this point. Not to say that they aren't back then, but certainly it wasn't as overreaching as it is today. But it's a tumultuous 4 years, and despite that, Jimmy Carter decides he's gonna try and hack the bomb before the bomb deteriorates. Oh, detonates. Okay. How many turns do I get, though?
Put up or shut up? I think I'm gonna carve that one on your tombstone.
You want a showdown, Rumlow? You got one.
I would be more worried about that bomb. Hack the interface console. You might be able to delay the blast, at least long enough to deal with crossbones.
These computers are not my specialty. Weak, even for Hydra.
Now, do I have to beat him once, or do I have to beat him like 15 times, kind of thing going on?
Let's settle this.
Punch.
It's about time. Fast is gonna stay.
Having some trouble.
If you drop this,
Two?
More Hydra incoming.
As much as Crossbones has earned a good thrashing, really keep an eye on that bomb.
We're handling it. Looks like it's up to me.
it's gonna take more than that.
Does anyone else have any? No.
No mercy for the servants of Philip.
Just another scar.
Anyways, long story short, let's just continue it. Shoot, don't want to get rid of this, but I have to. Ugh, come on, give me something, people. Here we go. 4 targets. Oh crap, I screwed up.
One's for you.
Oh well. Carter runs for re-election in 1980. Republicans are starting to find a voice again in a lot of ways. and Reagan is starting to become a powerhouse, notable governor. And despite the attacks on Reagan that Carter constantly does, I think people were just kind of tired of what was going on. A lot of the BS, you know.
What was the point of all this, Rumlow? Is this what Lilith wanted from you? Chaos?
Here's a little secret for you. I stopped caring what Lilith was a long time ago.
Why serve her?
Whack.
I don't serve her. I work for Hydra, but I don't even know what they are anymore.
And this is your sad attempt at a blaze of glory?
You got it, pal. And who better to go out with me but you?
So we do have to beat him twice. Honestly, am I missing something? Should I have beaten him well before this? I feel like I should have. I feel like I messed up. Ah, crap. I think I messed up. The bomb's gonna explode, isn't it? So then how are we gonna do this before the bomb detonates? These are garbage cards. This objective might be impossible because like he's gonna be down for a turn. God, this is gonna be really hard. But basically, long story short, with him, despite the convention being very, very contested, Carter does win the Democratic nomination, and a bunch of people believed that he was going to end up winning it, actually, or that he had a pretty decent shot at winning it. Okay, so I can beat him up.
What was the point of all this, Rumlow? Is this what Lilith wanted from you? Chaos?
Here's a little secret for you. I stopped caring what Lilith was a long time ago. Why serve her? I don't serve anybody. I work for Hydra, but I don't even know where they are anymore.
And this is your sad attempt at a blaze of glory?
And sweet. It's actually really gonna help. Come on, Spidey, using that big brain of yours. But it was pretty clear and apparent that the writing was just on the wall for Carter.
Now we're getting serious. It's about time. This'll shoot the fleas on the dog's back at 500 yards. About to get messy.
The debate didn't help to a certain degree, and
Stop me.
pretty much the unfortunate reality for Jimmy Carter was he had to just run on his record, and
It's no wonder he set that bomb on such a short timer. He never had any intention of leaving here.
Cap and Spider-Man, and he loses the election in 1980 by pretty disastrous numbers, if I'm going to be honest, which is crazy because if I'm correct, polls actually had him leading at a certain point. Or at least there was the belief that it was a lot more contested than it actually ultimately ended up being. But this went in alongside party lines, though, because Democrats, for the first time in years, would actually lose the Senate, actually, during the time that... during the time that Carter was president. And Reagan becomes the next president of the United States. We'll talk about him soon. And Carter becomes just a regular, everyday, normal citizen. Now, what has he done since? He's worked with a bunch of different presidents. Actually helped meet and do a bunch of diplomatic efforts overseas.
Never really tell with these things.
Specifically when it comes to Israel. Specifically Israel. There's always talk about him trying to run for re-election in the subsequent elections because, again, Democrats didn't really have anyone. They were thinking about him after '84, but he declined ultimately, and actually endorsed his former vice president, Mondale. What else? He tried to run, or they'd wanted him to run in '88 and '92, but at that point he's getting up there in age, so he's just basically resigned to just chilling and relaxing. Does all the right things, says all the right things for the most part, and really just chills. does several different nonprofits, humanitarian efforts. It's pretty interesting how he's just very adamant about the Israel-Palestine conflict and really taking a huge interest in it. Hey, Wanda.
Time for Agatha's ritual. The moon can't get any more right. Are you ready?
Are you?
I'm prepared as I can be. And I'll have some additional help.
Who?
Agatha asked me to recruit a few of the others.
How many people will be joining us?
All the Midnight Suns, Doctor Strange, and Logan overheard me talking with Nico and decided to come along.
He believed you?
He said, I've seen weirder stuff in my day. But he used another word for stuff.
It's hard to believe everyone just agreed to this.
Agatha had me tell them what only she could have known. Except Strange. He came without question. He had a twinkle in his eye, as though he already knew.
We should go.
I'll lead the way.
Okay. Interesting. I will point this out too. I record these a little bit earlier, and from my understanding, Jimmy Carter isn't in, unfortunately, the best of health overall, which is understandable considering the fact that, you know, he's well into, it's almost 100. I saw an article about his grandson in July talking about how his grandfather isn't awake every day anymore. You know, God bless him. Hopefully he can reach to be 100, because that would be an accomplishment on him. His birthday is in October, so it's pretty close by, but it's looking like, you know, God forbid, the end is near for Jimmy Carter, who was recently, as like 3 years ago, was like building houses and stuff at like 96 years old, which is pretty crazy. But it's basically Jimmy Carter, who is still alive, which is crazy.
This is it.
That's basically his legacy in a lot of ways. This is a very dumbed down, simplistic version of it. But a very complicated man and a very complicated president who I believe just believed in wanting to see the good in people and tries to live his life like everyday normal Christian. And say what you will, but it's inarguable that he's lived a pretty successful, prominent life, regardless of how he's going to be remembered as a president. And
But it will. Wanda knows what she's doing.
you know, I do hope that he, you know,
Besides, I'm Agatha.
eventually,
The world won't be rid of me till
what if and whenever he does, I mean, we all do at a certain point. Whenever he does pass on, I hope it's easy and simple, and gets to be reunited with his wife up in the pearly blue heaven gates in the sky.
once again,
Just a complicated man, but a good man.
you are
A
good.
good man.
Not everyone has that.
You know, in a lot of ways, he probably reminds me of like more progressive Captain America, if that makes any sense. It was funny. I was watching Captain America: The First Avenger, and which, by the way, is probably one of the most underrated Marvel movies just ever made.
Here, I was thinking you and Wanda were gonna be a thing, but no, that was all a ruse.
But it always struck me how like
Possible.
just
We're about to restore the
that movie's great. It's my favorite Captain America movie. especially considering Civil War is just all over the place. And I don't think that is aging as well as it probably should be. And Winter Soldier is great, but I can't rewatch that movie over and over and over again. I can rewatch the first Captain America over and over and over and over again. And I think it's just because of the themes that it's pushing and the ideas of being a good man, that it's both not only on principle but on morals too. And I think that's something that really endears me to that movie. And I don't know, it just seems like Carter did try to live his life as moralistically as he possibly could. The only thing about him that's difficult is just he's so stubborn and so confrontational, and he's not savvy when it comes to the political things, because he's just so plain spoken on how he does everything that leads to conflict and confrontation from people who aren't very, very good people. What am I doing? Light torches. Oh, my dogs. Oh. Okay. How am I lighting these torches?
Fires are lit. Any last words before we begin? Once we start, there's no
I don't even know what we're doing, but let's do it.
I will talk to the others.
And then I'll get started on talking about Mr. Ronald Reagan.
just in case.
I think Reagan is probably going to be the last one I'm going to talk about. I absolutely despise George H.W. Bush personally.
The Grey Seneschal
I don't want to talk about any of the modern presidents. I would say modern being like post 1990. Because Clinton's a monster. W is also a monster. Obama is a monster. And we're all living through the Orange Man and the Old Man.
I do.
The latter being a very bad monster.
The Grey Seneschal, knowing it may lead to your possession.
I will.
Spoken, witness.
It's kind of sad, actually, to be honest with you.
I will now begin.
Steady, Wanda.
I call upon
But mainly, I just don't want to talk about it because, I mean, it just literally just happened like 20, 30 years ago. And
and deliver me into this.
for a lot of people, it's just,
It's her.
I mean, it's pretty well known for the most part, at least in terms of the more recent historical legacies of these individuals.
I do not want you to find out like this. How are you here?
Like, the only thing I would even remotely quote on HW is, like, the fact that, you know, he was, like, the head of the CIA at one point, right?
Wanda stole
Crazy, I know.
I nearly caught her outside my room, didn't I?
Wanda will
Why were you opposed to bringing Agatha back? I don't get it.
Why would you do that to me?
Agatha asked me to.
Asked? Why would you pull her back from her final rest?
Is there something they're not telling me?
Sarah, she never left the Abbey. She's been here for months.
Then why are you... The Grey Seneschal? I won't let you do this to her.
Sarah, wait!
Wanda won't destroy her again. Sarah, no! What have you done to her?
Nothing worse than what you've done, Sarah.
Agatha?
You were the worst thing to happen to me. How I loathed our time together. It took death to finally free me of your
Ooh, sneaky.
Agatha. Reveal yourself.
Hello, sweetly.
Mephisto.
Release Agatha. We have
to simply give you this nectar. No. Someone must know how this works.
It's always the same with you. The devil is here, and he's ready to bargain.
Sorry, I am intrigued.
Release Agatha right now.
No. I'm willing to make a simple trade. Give me Ilyana.
Mephisto.
Faded rag spirit.
No bargains.
And I'll destroy her and leave.
Do not touch her.
I thought you controlled power here. But if you have no hope of the queen, then it was useless to
What is even going on?
Wait. I will speak with Ilyana.
Good, good. But don't take too long. If you delay, I'll melt this shriveled spirit.
There is little to say.
Ilyana, I am just stalling for her.
Shush. There is little to say because I know how to push him out.
What is the plan?
If I banish him directly, he takes her with him. But if I channel my power through someone close to Agatha, wham! Sucker punch. He loses control, I banish him, and Agatha stays behind.
Why have you not done it already?
Channeling my power through a person causes lasting injury.
Oh, I have to choose who's gonna
Know who should
bear
bear
it?
the suffering.
I can only offer myself.
Hunter,
Yeah, why not?
quite
Just do it.
dangerous. Are you certain?
To save Agatha, defy the devil, and keep you from his clutches? Of course I am certain.
She likes me.
You are a fool. But you are the best fool I know. Give me the signal when you're ready.
Enough deliberations. Do we have a
Magic. What do we say to the devil?
We say,
The devil can go to
Like, what lasting damage does it do? Exactly.
Agatha? Sarah, you can hear me? And see you. What? No
What the? What is this game, people?
No, it's you.
God.
What you've done here to bring everyone together. It's not enough. I've never been more delighted to tell you how wrong you are. This is so much better than we'd expected. We just need to finish it. We? Does that mean you'll stay? You thought I did all this to say goodbye? Oh, Sarah, you're hopeless.
Ronald Wilson Reagan.
look at that. Hunter.
Number 40. 40th President of the United States of America, and a very, very deeply interesting individual whose legacy I think is
It worked.
really, really all over the place, to be quite honest with you.
Wanda, this was all you.
Like, there's a lot of people that I'll listen to and I'll follow that have a
We pushed each other and
very
we achieved.
incredibly positive reaction to Reagan. A lot of people have negative beliefs about Reagan,
I'm going to bed and
and truth is he's pretty in the middle, I think, when it comes to how his historical legacy is and should be. I think he gets credit for a lot of things that he probably shouldn't have gotten credit for. I also think he gets blame for a lot of the things that really absolutely are not his fault. And, like, really stupidly not his fault.
And all is as it should. Miss Maximoff acquitted herself with aplomb, as did you and Miss
And he's a complicated president for me,
Are you
you know?
concerned about Mephisto?
Because, I mean,
More than any other?
during his time as president, a lot of things get passed that would go sufficiently counterintuitive to his beliefs. I mean, who puts taxes on tips? I mean, you know.
Kids actually did it. Agatha's back. This place
But I don't know if I can
more life.
truly attribute that to Reagan. I mean, he didn't want that. But it's not like he didn't not sign it into legislation and into bills, you know.
I can't thank you enough, and I'm certain I will over the coming days. But right now, do you mind terribly if I catch
Oh god, they made her gay.
And
Sorry, it's just funny.
Don't make
Like,
me
man, my goodness, they're just going for it. Hey, if you're gonna go for it, go for it. When we come back, we will finish up on Reagan, and then we'll probably talk about some other great historical legacies of some of our great politician and statesmen. And yeah, we'll just go there. Like and subscribe, guys. God bless. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Hope you're all enjoying this. If you have any comments or anything, or, you know, things that I can improve, just let me know, and I'll try to, you know, fix it. God bless. Later, y'all.